trainers, welcome back! You're with Pewter City Gym, and today we're going to update the Sola region Pokedex once more. For those who are new, Sola is our little project for this channel where I come up with Pokemon to inhabit a hypothetical region based on Southern California and some of the surrounding areas. Highways, freeways, desert, coastal wilderness, and cities of all kinds are just some of the environments we're dealing with here. So far, we have a Gachapon Rotom form found in an abandoned gaming facility, our grass-type starters, fire-type, water-type starters as well, two different families of regional bug, regional Route 1 rodents, of course, as well as some early route birds and dogs. We have a Dark Watcher-inspired Ultra Beast, some Solarian Poliwag action, a Solarian variant on Boreal Mine Serpentrack and Serpent Trail. We have a multi-form ghost made up of shipping boxes, a pallet, and shrink wrap, as well as a little guy who's a possessed cardboard box. We have some seasonal cheer in the form of Fairy Fire Gingerbread Man and some fun new rock types from the last episode. Hey, if you enjoy Fakemon and Pokemon content, I'd really love it if you could like and subscribe. I post new Fakemon videos every month and a lot of Let's Play content, so if that sounds like your jam, please, you are welcome here. So today, we're slapping on some fishing gear and venturing forth into the great Solarian waterways to catch ourselves some fishy Fakemon. Fish are one of the staples of every Pokemon generation. In fact, this most recent generation brought 3 new species to the table in Veluza, Dodonzo, and Tatsugiri. From Magikarp through to Basculegion, though, every generation has at least one new finned friend available. And honestly, they often feel like a neglected section of the dex. Despite Basculegion being pretty awesome, Basculin in its very own game was added in as kind of an afterthought. And before Overquill, Quillfish was literally just a forgettable wee guy. Finneon is just sort of there. Wishy-Washy's pretty awesome though, and Tatsugiri's 3 color varieties really help set it apart. My point is, they kind of run the gamut of being blah to awesome. Hopefully the ones I've come up with are more towards the nice end of the scale. Let's head over to the lab and set up an aquarium. So there are 2 fishy families we're discussing today. One is an original creation and one is a regional variant, and we're going to talk about the regional variant first. The idea came to me courtesy of Boreal Mind. She asked for suggestions for fish Fakemon to add to the Germansburg region. Me, being a big fan of pickled fish, suggested the Bismarckbrichten. Well, more specifically, I mentioned the herring. The Bismarckbrichten is a German sandwich made of pickled herring, you see, and I was hungry at the time. She took the idea, changed the dish to roll mop, and made a regional Tatsugiri. I said, hey, that's pretty cool and gives me an idea for my own regional Tatsugiri if that's cool with you. And it was! So here we are. Everyone should do regional Tatsugiris, I think that would be amazing. So Tatsugiri obviously are based on sushi. They have a little chin puff dealie that looks like a ball of rice, and they are fish. So the whole thing comes together to look pretty tasty. California has its own piece of sushi named after it in the California roll. There's sometimes a bit of shade thrown at the California roll because it's seen as less authentic than other types of hand roll. However, I feel like this is kind of unfair. I won't get into the controversy behind the exact origin. 3 chefs are credited with the California roll's invention, and it's hard to know which is the authentic version of events, but it's been around since at least the 1970s and possibly the 1960s, and was crafted to suit an American palate. In general, folks back in those days were less likely to try new types of food with unfamiliar ingredients, especially like raw fish, seaweed, that kind of stuff. But a reimagining of foods that they already kind of liked? Sure, why not? So instead of seaweed on the outside, the California roll was made inside out with rice around the edges. Instead of raw fish, they used cooked crab and avocado. This simple concept was enough to make sure that sushi became less scary and more interesting to a wider range of people who then might be inclined to try other, more authentic Japanese food. It's pretty much fair to say that without the California roll, sushi, sashimi, and other amazing Japanese food might be less popular and less available today. And that thought makes my tummy very, very sad. So what could be more in line with the Solar region's influences than a California roll-style Tatsugiri? I made it look a little sad and puffy. It's covered in a rice-looking portion of a regular Tatsugiri, and I made it a little on the chubby side. Those cheeks are pink and are made to resemble the crab salad that you often find in California rolls, as well as looking a little like sakura blossoms as a throwback reference to sushi's Japanese origins. The fins are big, blocky, green bits of avocado. Most California rolls have a little seaweed inside the rice to help keep the ingredients together and provide some structural integrity, so I used that to make the fins on the back of the fish and also to reference the green plastic sushi grass that you often find used to separate rolls of sushi on a plate or in a tray when you're getting it from a grocery store or a convenience store. I wanted the texture of this Tatsugiri to look very much like big grains of rice, so I tried a few new things with the shading. Let me know what you think in the comments. And here you have Tatsugiri, Solarian form, the mimicry Pokemon. Rotom. This form of Tatsugiri are lower energy than their Paldean counterparts. They are common in cities and towns and are popular with tourists. Here's your base stats and your moves. Stats are lower than the Paldean versions, unfortunately. The moves are pretty similar all around, though you get a couple of fighting type moves in there, as you may have noticed. Fighting water is the type for Solarian Tatsugiri. Weird, huh? One of the most interesting parts of Solarian Tatsugiri is that if a Dodonzo is on the field during a double battle, Tatsugiri will go inside Dodonzo's mouth and literally double all its stats. This does make it a 2-on-1 battle, with the opposing side both having no choice but to attack Dodonzo. But with that stat boost, it's a much fairer fight than you might expect. This ability is called Commander, and it's honestly kind of broken. But does Sola have Dodonzo? No, it does not. So I don't want Solarian Tatsugiri to fall behind its Paldean cousins. Not too much anyway. I wanted to create something that was similar to Commander, but different enough to keep things feeling fresh and unique. I didn't want to just make a regional Dodonzo or create an analog for it. I wanted something that would help Solarian Tatsugiri to stand on its own. So I came up with a custom ability called Sauce Boss. Sauce Boss activates in double battles when Tatsugiri's partner is fainted. It suddenly gains a boost and stats to compensate, along with a bit of a form shift. I wanted to tie into the anime trope of the powered-up form. Super Saiyan, Bankai, Gears 2nd through 5, one for all full cowling with a side of Uramoka. In short, Tatsugiri is now a shonen protagonist. We all remember the first time that we saw Goku go Super Saiyan because he collected all of the Chaos Emeralds and... because Krillin got exploded. That's the energy that I wanted to encapsulate here. Colors are primarily the same, pink cheeks, avocado green arms, but it's covered in a dark swirling energy. Soy sauce. See, California rolls are nice and all, but a little soy sauce on them for salt and umami actually really improves the flavor a lot. This fishy fighter takes that to a whole new level with a raging soy sauce fin/mohawk and the lower portion of its body being soaked in the stuff. I imagine if it was animated, those big drops of sauce would rejoin and then float up from the wavering wall of salty goodness that is the superpowered form's altered hairstyle. Kinda like Milcery's cream crown. Now you see where the ability named Sauce Boss comes from. Soy sauce. Oh, and of course, once Sauce Boss was activated, this would be a solo battle as well. Tatsugiri versus its two opponents. Here are your stats and moves. Moves are identical, as this is just a form shift, not an evolution or anything, but those stats. What does the scouter say about his power level? It's over... well, you know. Here are your shinies, and here is the egg. So just for fun, I animated Sauce Boss. Let's move on to the original Sola Pokemon. I love keeping fish. Their colors, their little personalities, the feeding, the cleaning, the aquascaping and planting. I love all of it. That's not to say I've always been good at it. Storytime. There used to be a mom and pop fish store down the street from where I live, and I loved it because it always had different stuff than the chain pet stores. I'd go in there just to browse if I was in the neighborhood, but also to buy various things. Sometimes fish, but more often supplies. If the owner ever got a fish he didn't know, he'd show it to me to see if I'd seen it before or if I could look it up for him. Often, if it would work in one of my community tanks, I'd pick whatever it was up and make a new little friend or two. I was one of the first people I know who got to keep Del Rio Tetras, for example. Anyway, one day I go in to grab some aquatic plants for my turtles to snack on, and the owner, we'll call him Barry, runs up to me like the Flash saying he has something he's never seen before. It arrived with the feeder fish, but I have no clue what it is, he says. It was a very small, gray-brown fish that definitely wasn't a carp or a minnow like the other feeders. It was maybe 2/3 of an inch long and had these big, cute eyes. He told me I could either have it, or it would just go back to the feeder tank to eventually be eaten by someone's Oscars or arowana. I took it right away. I didn't want to think of this unique little animal being gobbled up, and figured it was small enough that it could go into one of my friendlier community tanks and do no harm while I figured out what it was. I had it for 3 weeks or so, and it was pretty shy. It would come out to feed with its tank mates, but usually hid under some hardscape I had in my tank. I'd housed it with some neon tetras, cherry barbs, some guppies, one very old Molly who had moved from a larger tank as she was showing her years and having trouble competing with her other tank mates for food, and some lemon tetras. My new little pal wasn't growing at all from what I could see, and I had no clue what it was despite doing some fairly extensive research both online and in various fish-keeping books and magazines that Misty and I had. In a word, I was stumped. So, that's what this first Pokemon is based on. A small, shy, but overall kind of friendly looking fish. He's gonna be gray-green with big, shiny eyes. Looks cute, right? I gave him fins that look like a little bow tie in front to lend to that kind of friendly, somewhat nerdy look. I did a lot of research related to identifying this fishy friend, so it seems relevant. There are a couple of sinister elements though. Those teeth look a little sharp for typical nerdy buck teeth, and it's lit from underneath, which is usually not a great sign. Meet Shy Fry, the tiny fish Pokemon. Shy Fry can be found in many bodies of water around Sola, where they tend to keep to themselves. As such, not much is known about this water type. Here's your base stats and moves. Nothing to write home about, it's just a simple little fish with simple little moves and nothing impressive by way of power. Shy Fry? Shy and Fry? Fry is the proper term for a baby fish, and it's also where a lot of fish end up. Anyway, Storytime, Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. Eventually, Misty and I went on vacation for 5 days. I'd set up feeder blocks and everything, so all the fish in our various tanks would be fed while we were away. No big deal, we'd done this plenty of times before after all. I had almost forgotten the enigma surrounding my small friend and just considered him another member of the community by that point. So anyway, we get home and the tank is brown. The water looks like minestrone soup. Something had gone catastrophically wrong, and I saw a big, dark shape moving around in the water. My little friend had grown suddenly. My theory is that because the feeder blocks were a higher protein food source than the general fish flakes he'd been eating, he suddenly found that he had the nutrients available to warrant a growth spurt. And suddenly the members of his community were looking a lot more like a well-stocked pantry than a social club. He'd also ripped up all the plants and torn them apart. I lost every fish in that tank except for the lemon tetras, who I guess were fast enough to outswim him and vigilant enough not to be caught unawares. It was very upsetting. Anyway, now that he was bigger, I could get a better look at his features, and he was a bass, a largemouth bass. The reason I hadn't been able to identify this before was I'd been looking at fish kept mostly in tanks and ponds during my research, not fish kept for sport. He had gone from a little under an inch to about 2.5 inches in length over the course of 5 days. Amazing what the right diet can do. I took him back to my fish store friend and told him that my bass would need rehoming somewhere with a lake or a large pond. He had connections with people who would be able to give this little monster an appropriate home where it could grow and thrive and hopefully not be fished up. At least that's what he told me, and I hope he was telling the truth. It wasn't the bass's fault, and I didn't want it to suffer just because I had made a pretty dumb mistake. So that's what this evolutionary phase is based on. Long, curving lines and sharp points are the order of the day here. I wanted to give this fishy fiend hitman energy. That well-dressed but will completely mess you up vibe. John Wick, Sebastian from Black Butler, Agent 47, James Bond and his License to Kill. Also orcas. They aren't fish, but they're black and white and will happily make you red all over. I kept the green fins of the prior form because another name for the largemouth bass is the mossback. And here we have Bassasin, the hitman Pokemon. Bassasin provide fishers with a lot of sport as they are hard to reel in and can be violent even on land. The necktie-looking fin they sport is a sensitive organ used to track prey. Here's your stats and moves. It's a water steel type, so you have a lot of metal moves in there, but with those big jaws you have some biting attacks as well. Bassasin is just a portmanteau of bass and assassin, of course. It's pretty simple. In terms of abilities, Shy Fry gets Run Away. Bassasin gets Strong Jaw to power up those biting moves. For hidden abilities, we have Swift Swim for Shy Fry. This increases speed in the rain. When it evolves, the hidden ability becomes Sniper to double down on that Hitman kind of theme. Here's your shiny versions, and here's the egg. And there you have it, trainers. 3 new fish for the Sola region. I hope you like them. Bassasin would only ever be found very rarely in the wild, but you can get Shy Fry almost anywhere with water by using the Minimon now. Tatsugiri would be found in towns and cities, in fountains, and in water features mostly. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for stopping by, trainers. Next time we'll be looking at some fun grass types. I hope to see you there. Till then, take care. Bye!